It was just past dawn when Sergeant Cole spotted it. A small, pink backpack leaning against the outer fence of the barracks. Dusty, weather-worn, and completely out of place. There were no children on the base. No civilians allowed past the checkpoint. Yet there it was, like it had been waiting. He slowed his stride. Something in his gut tightened. It wasn't the backpack itself that unnerved him. It was the way it sat, carefully placed. Not dropped, not abandoned. Like someone had wanted it to be found. Cole knelt down. His fingers hovered over the zipper for a moment. His instincts, honed by years in combat zones, whispered that this wasn't ordinary. He scanned the horizon. Silence, just the wind brushing through the chain-link fence. Then, he opened it. Inside was no bomb, no trap, no toy. Just a notebook, a child's diary, its cover soaked from the morning dew, corners curled from age. On the front, written in shaky blue crayon, "If you find this, please read." Cole froze. His heart thudded louder than his boots ever had. He opened the first page. "My name is Emma. I am 9. I'm not sure if anyone will find me, but I hope you do." The words weren't messy or rushed. They were heartbreaking, innocent, heavy. He blinked hard, closed the bag, looked around again. No sign of anyone, no tracks in the dust. Just that voice, echoing now inside his mind. Something about this wasn't just strange, it was wrong. This wasn't a simple case of a lost child's item. This was a message, and it had waited just long enough for someone like him to find it. He didn't know it yet, but that morning, everything would change. Sergeant Nathan Cole was not a man easily shaken. 15 years in the military had taught him to keep his emotions buried under layers of order, steel, and structure. He was the kind of soldier who showed up early for everything, kept his boots polished like mirrors, and never missed a morning patrol, even when he hadn't slept the night before. Stationed at Fort Harrington, a remote base near the dense Appalachian woodlands, Cole's job was simple: perimeter patrol and personnel security. Nothing ever really happened. The base was quiet, far from any town, nestled between miles of trees and mist-covered hills. Most mornings were uneventful. Just the rhythm of footsteps on gravel, the occasional fox darting through the underbrush, and a sky shifting from black to blue as the sun crept over the ridge. That morning, everything had felt normal, until it didn't. Cole had just passed the northwest perimeter gate when he saw it. The pink backpack. Small, warm, leaning gently against the outer fence like it had been placed there with care. He stopped. It wasn't military issue. It wasn't gear. And no one on base had kids that young. There were no school visits scheduled. No civilians had been authorized entry. The fence itself was topped with barbed wire, cameras mounted at every 10 feet. There was no way a child had simply wandered up and dropped it there. Cole's instincts kicked in. He scanned the area. Hand hovered over his sidearm. Eyes narrowed as he stepped closer. He looked for footprints, signs of forced entry, or disturbance in the fence. Nothing. The grass was undisturbed. The dirt hadn't been scuffed. The bag was just there. He crouched beside it, felt the weight. It was light, but something about it made his heart thud harder than it had during live-fire drills. A strange tightness settled in his chest. Not fear exactly, but a warning. A quiet, internal alarm telling him this wasn't just out of place. It was deliberate. He glanced at the cameras. Later, he would learn that the footage showed nothing, just an empty fence line one moment, and then the bag, sitting like a ghost, had delivered it. He touched the zipper, paused. Bomb protocol training echoed in his mind. He called it in. Unidentified package, northwest fence, potential civilian item, requesting secondary unit for sweep. But he didn't wait. He opened it. Inside, no explosives, no wires, no threat. Just a small, floral notebook. A diary. The kind little girls carry when they still believe in magic and fairy tales. Its fabric cover was faded, damp. A faint scent of lavender still clung to it, like innocence trying to hold on. He opened the front. A note was taped inside, written in uneven handwriting. To the soldier who finds this, please don't throw it away. Please read. He sat down, right there on the gravel. His shift partner radioed back. ETA 5 minutes. But Cole couldn't wait. Something deeper than curiosity pulled at him now. Something ancient and paternal. He flipped the first page. My name is Emma. I am 9 years old. I lost my brother in the woods. I don't know where I am, but I see big green trucks sometimes. They drive past and never stop. Please help us. If you can read this, please find us. Cole's throat tightened. He checked the time stamp on the corner of the page. Emma had dated it. Nearly 6 months ago. 6 months? His stomach turned. Had this been here that long? Had no one noticed? Impossible. He would have seen it. The entire patrol team would have. He read the next few lines. Descriptions of trees. A cabin. Something about hiding from men with flashlights. Then nothing but a tear-streaked smudge. The ink had bled into the paper like a scar. The secondary unit arrived. 2 younger soldiers in flak vests and rifles. One looked at the backpack, shrugged. You think it's just some lost hiker kid? Cole didn't answer. He stood up, clutching the notebook like it was something sacred. No, he said quietly. This wasn't lost. It was placed here for someone to find. He looked out into the trees beyond the fence. Dense, silent, endless. Somewhere out there, a little girl had waited, or was still waiting, or had vanished in a place where no one had thought to look. And somehow, impossibly, this tiny backpack had crossed the border between 2 worlds, the military fortress and the forgotten forest, and landed at his feet, as if it had chosen him. He didn't know what he would do next, but Sergeant Nathan Cole knew one thing for certain. He wasn't leaving this mystery alone. Not now. Not ever. He sat alone in the barracks office, the child-sized notebook resting gently on the table before him. The room, usually filled with routine chatter and clipboard reports, now felt unnaturally still. Outside, the evening drills carried on as usual, boots stomping and orders echoing. But inside Cole's world, everything had changed. He took a breath, then another, and slowly opened the second page. My name is Emma. I don't know what day it is anymore. I only know the sun rises and falls and then comes back again. I miss how it used to be. I miss cereal in the morning and cartoons, and my brother laughing when I made funny faces. Cole paused. He could almost hear her voice. Not the voice of a ghost, but the clear, hopeful voice of a child who hadn't yet surrendered to the darkness around her. He read on. I think my mom and dad are gone. I heard something loud, and then they didn't come back. I waited for 2 nights. Me and Leo hid in the crawlspace, just like Mommy said if something bad happened. I kept my hand over his mouth when he cried, so they wouldn't hear us. Cole's jaw tensed. Who were they? The base hadn't reported any disturbances for months. The area beyond the perimeter was considered uninhabited. But now it felt like something had always been there, just out of sight. I took Leo to the river yesterday. We looked for food. He's only 5. I gave him the last cereal bar, and he smiled like it was a birthday cake. There was a crude sketch taped below the line. A little boy with a wide grin, stick figure arms waving, and a crown on his head labeled Prince Leo. Cole stared at it for a long time. He hadn't expected this. He'd thought maybe it was a prank, or some tragic keepsake from long ago. But the pages weren't dusty. The writing was recent. Whoever Emma was, she had lived in these woods, recently. Possibly still. Another page. Sometimes I see the green trucks go by. Big ones, with shiny wheels. I waved once, but they didn't stop. I think they can't see us. Maybe we're invisible now. Cole leaned back, heart heavy. The green trucks, military convoys. His convoys. He had passed those roads dozens of times. Had she really been so close? A child, hidden in plain sight? He turned to the next entry. Leo got sick yesterday. He has a cough and his eyes look tired. I made him a bed out of leaves and my jacket. I told him he would be okay. I'm scared he won't be. Cole's eyes burned. He blinked hard, wiping his hand across his face. He hadn't cried in years. Not through war, not through loss. But this was different, because it wasn't about combat or duty. It was about a child, reaching out through ink and paper, praying someone would listen. Another entry. I heard voices in the trees last night. Not nice ones. Men laughing and stomping around. I held Leo close and didn't breathe. I think they were looking for something. Not us, I hope. I don't think they would help. Cole felt the chill settle deeper into his bones. He remembered old rumors about abandoned cabins, hidden routes once used by traffickers or smugglers years ago. The forest was wide, unmapped in parts, forgotten. Another entry was smudged, water-stained, almost unreadable, but he could still make out her words. I don't want to fall asleep anymore. When I sleep, I dream of my parents. I wake up and remember they're not here. And below that in pencil, I put the bag by the big fence, the one with the wires. I saw a man walk past in green. I think he's nice. I hope he sees it. I hope he sees me. Cole's breath caught in his throat. She had seen him. All those mornings. All those years. She had been watching from the trees while he had patrolled the fence with headphones on. Eyes forward. Never once imagining someone so small could be trying so hard to be found. The last few pages were shorter. More fragile. The handwriting more shaky. I'm going to try again tonight. I think I can get closer. I'll put the bag where he can't miss it. And one final line, scribbled, hurried, and underlined 3 times. Please don't throw this away. Please help us. Cole sat still for a long time. The world outside hadn't changed. The drills continued. The radios buzzed with logistics and fuel reports. But something inside him had shifted. He gently closed the notebook, as if sealing a child's prayer inside a vault. His mind ran in 100 directions. Who to call, where to search, how to verify. But more than anything, he knew he couldn't rest. Not now. This wasn't a report to file. It wasn't evidence to tag. It was a lifeline, a voice that had waited in silence, and now finally had been heard. In the days that followed, Sergeant Cole couldn't sleep. The notebook never left his side. He carried it like a fragile artifact, flipping its pages over and over, as if some detail might shift if he stared long enough. He read Emma's words like scripture. Every letter a thread in a story he could no longer unsee. But the pages had stopped. The last entry ended with hope. I think he saw me, and yet no follow-up. No next page. Just silence. Still, from what she'd left behind, Cole pieced together her journey. And as he did, Emma's world, one filled with hidden courage and whispered terror, began to take shape. Her story began somewhere far off, in a small town she never named. She described a yellow house with chipped paint, a garden her mother loved, a swing set her dad had put together one summer, though one chain always squeaked. I liked to swing while the sun set, she wrote. Everything looked golden, like the world was smiling. She talked about Leo more than anyone. He was her little shadow. He followed her everywhere, through the backyard, through the grocery store aisles, even when she went to brush her teeth. He says I'm his boss lady. she added, with a scribbled drawing of herself in sunglasses holding Leo's hand. Then came the night everything broke. Emma never used words like attack or war, but her descriptions told enough. There was yelling. Mommy told us to hide. She kissed us fast and shut the basement door. Leo cried, but I covered his mouth. There were bangs upstairs. Glass sounds. I don't know what happened. I just remember waiting. She and Leo stayed hidden for nearly 2 days. We had crackers. I gave him mine when he got sad. I told him we were playing cave explorers. He smiled, but I think he knew I was lying. When it was finally quiet, she climbed the basement stairs. They were gone. The door was open. The whole house looked different, like someone had shaken it. I didn't see blood, but I didn't see Mommy or Daddy either. So they left. Emma packed a few things. Leo's favorite socks, some granola bars, a flashlight, and her notebook. I told Leo we were going camping. He brought his action figure. I think it made him feel strong. They walked for what she thought were maybe 3 suns. Through woods, across creeks, sometimes sleeping under trees, other times inside hollow logs. Emma described each step like a child forced to grow up in fast forward. They found an old cabin. It had no door, no electricity, but it was shelter. Emma made a nest of blankets from a nearby barn and cleaned out the bugs with a stick. I told Leo it was our secret clubhouse. He said it smelled like cheese. She'd scavenged food from abandoned campsites. Cans, crackers, a bag of marshmallows once. Every bite stretched between them. Every day, she invented games to keep him distracted. I made him draw monsters we'd defeat together. I told him he had a laser in his hand. He laughed so hard when I tripped over a log. I laughed too, but only because I didn't want to cry. Then came the cold. One entry was shakier than the rest. Leo's cough got worse. He was warm all the time. I held him close, but he kept shaking. I looked for help. I waved at trucks. I screamed once, but no one came. She wrapped him in every layer she could find. She gave him the last of the soup they'd boiled from wild roots and snowmelt. She even tried leaving signs, rock piles shaped like arrows, hoping someone might follow. That's when she saw the fence, big and shiny, like a castle gate. There was a man walking. He didn't see me, but I saw him. He looked strong. I think I can trust him. She wrote that she'd leave the backpack near the fence. I'll put it where he'll find it. I'll wait in the woods to see if he comes back. If he does, I'll wave. Cole realized now. That man was him. He tried to remember. Had he ever looked beyond the trees? Had he ever paused to wonder what shadows might hide beyond the barbed wire? Apparently not. She had trusted him. A complete stranger. But something in his walk, his uniform, his presence, she believed in it. Believed he would help. She had risked everything to leave that backpack. Maybe even Leo's side. And now, Cole didn't know if she had made it back. Every step of her journey haunted him. Every line in the notebook was a map of survival, scribbled in crayon and hope. He reported everything to his superiors. But the forest beyond the base was vast, full of ravines, cliffs, and old mining trails. Search teams had started combing the area, but it was slow, grueling work. Days passed. No Emma, no Leo, just that notebook, that voice. I want to grow up, she'd written in the margin of one page. I want to go to school again. I want to ride the yellow bus and sit by the window and count trees. Cole folded the page back, closed his eyes. He promised himself something then. If Emma had made it, if there was even a chance, he wouldn't stop. He would find her, because sometimes bravery didn't come with badges or medals. Sometimes it came from a 9-year-old girl who kept walking, kept writing, kept believing, even when the world forgot her. It was the coldest night Emma had faced since the beginning. The wind howled through the trees like something alive, whipping leaves in circles around the old cabin she and Leo had turned into their shelter. The roof leaked, the floor groaned, and the fire she'd learned to make with sticks and a flint stone had long since turned to smoke and ash. Leo lay still beside her, wrapped in all the clothing they had left. His cough had quieted, but not in the way she hoped. It was that heavy kind of quiet, where the stillness is louder than any sound. She sat up slowly, careful not to wake him. Her fingers were red, cracked at the tips. She dug through the backpack. One piece of stale bread, half a bottle of water, the notebook almost full, a broken flashlight, and a photo. It was the only picture she had of her family, torn from a frame when they fled. Her mom's smile, her dad's tired eyes, Leo giggling in her arms. She held the photo tight, then tucked it into the notebook's back pocket. It was time. She'd seen the soldier again that morning. He had walked past the tall wire fence, same routine, same strong steps. He hadn't looked her way, but she knew it was him. The one she'd written about. The one who wore green and didn't look cruel. Something inside her told her that tonight had to be the night. If she didn't do it now, she might never get the chance. She kissed Leo's forehead gently, whispering, "I'll be back before the moon moves." Then she wrapped him tighter in her coat and left the cabin, clutching the backpack close. The forest at night was a different world. No longer the playful adventure land she had tried to imagine for Leo. It was alive with sound, twigs cracking, leaves whispering, creatures rustling. Her feet were sore, wrapped in mismatched socks and plastic bags to stay dry. But she moved quickly, one hand on trees to guide her path. She knew the trail now. After weeks of watching, mapping in her mind, she had traced the quickest way to the fence. The military base was surrounded by a perimeter road. On the other side, safety. But it might as well have been another planet. The fence was electrified, the cameras unblinking. No door, no voice to call out to, just hope and steel. When she reached the edge of the trees, she crouched low behind a fallen log. The base glowed in the distance like a city of stars, soft golden lights in buildings, headlights of trucks crawling by. She waited. Another patrol passed. 2 men in uniform, walking and talking. One laughed. The other adjusted his radio. Neither noticed her. She held her breath. When they were gone, she made her move. Low to the ground, heart pounding, she scurried up to the fence line. Her fingers trembled as she reached into her pack and gently removed the notebook. She wrapped it in a shirt, Leo's favorite one, with a rocket ship, and tied it tight. Then she placed it right against the base of the fence, in view of the patrol path. Just behind a camera post, she whispered, "Please find it." And then she ran, back through the woods. Every snapping twig felt louder now, every gust of wind more threatening. But she didn't stop. She couldn't, because if she wasn't there when Leo woke up, he'd be scared. She stumbled once, cut her palm on a rock, but got up and kept moving. The cold bit at her cheeks, but she barely felt it. All that mattered was getting back. When she reached the cabin, the sky was already starting to lighten. She crawled inside, breath coming in gasps, and wrapped herself around Leo. He was still warm. She whispered stories to him, of the soldier, of the base, of the tall fence and the light that spilled through the trees. She told him she believed someone would come, that help was near. "Just hold on," she whispered. "A little longer." That day, she didn't leave the cabin. She couldn't risk being seen again. If the wrong people found her before the soldier did, she didn't even want to imagine it. She sang quietly, drew with a stick on the dirt floor, reread the few pages in her notebook not yet torn by water. She listened for trucks, listened for voices. Hours passed. Night fell again, but that night, something changed. There were footsteps in the woods, not the heavy, stomping kind she'd feared. These were careful, slow, intentional. Emma pulled Leo close and held her breath. Then a voice. Emma? Her name. It echoed through the trees like a miracle. She almost didn't believe it. She peeked through a crack in the wooden wall and saw him, the soldier. He looked taller up close, not like a superhero, not like a monster, just tired and real. He had the backpack in his hand. She stepped outside slowly, clutching Leo's blanket. Her knees felt weak. Her heart roared in her chest. He dropped to his knees the moment he saw her. "You're okay," he said, tears welling in his eyes. "You're real." She nodded, couldn't speak, just held out her hand. He took it like it was the most precious thing he'd ever been given. And behind them, a second soldier radioed in. "Contact made. We've got her. And there's a boy too. Condition unknown. Requesting evac now." The lights from the rescue team soon lit up the trees. For the first time in weeks, Emma didn't feel cold. She was going home. The ride to the base was quiet. Emma sat beside Sergeant Cole in the back of the military truck. Her tiny fingers curled tightly around his gloved hand. Her other arm cradled Leo, whose head rested in her lap. A medic monitored him closely, checking vitals and whispering soft encouragement. Emma didn't speak. She didn't need to. Everything that needed to be said was in her eyes. When they crossed the base gates, the sun had just begun to rise. Warm light spilled across the gravel and metal, washing the world in gold. Soldiers stopped what they were doing to watch. Some stood with hands over their hearts. Others just stared, eyes wide, because what they saw wasn't just two rescued children. They saw survival, bravery, a miracle. Emma and Leo were rushed to the infirmary. Doctors, nurses, trauma specialists. Everyone moved with urgent precision, but Emma never let go of Cole's hand. Not even once. Not until Leo was safely tucked into a hospital bed, for in his arm, warm under layers of clean sheets. Only then did she let her shoulders relax. Cole sat in the hallway, still in uniform, notebook clutched in both hands. He hadn't let it go either. To him, it had become sacred. Emma's voice, her pain, her courage, written line by line in blue crayon. The commanding officer approached. "We read the entries," he said quietly. It's unbelievable." Cole nodded. "It's real. What she's been through, what they've both been through. It's going to take time. The boy's condition is serious, but stable. She probably saved his life 10 times over." "She did," Cole said. "And now it's our turn." News spread fast. By the end of the day, Emma's story had reached every corner of the base. But it didn't stop there. The next morning, Cole woke to his phone buzzing non-stop. BBC, local news, international outlets, military blogs. Everyone wanted to know about the girl with the notebook and the brother she saved. But Emma wasn't interested in interviews. When a reporter asked if she had anything to say, she looked up with tired eyes and said, "I just want my brother to feel better." Cole stayed with her through it all. He made her laugh with silly stories about boot camp, brought her chocolate milk from the mess hall, and even found a way to get her a pair of new pink sneakers, just like the ones she described in her diary. She never let them out of her sight. Leo recovered slowly, but surely. When he first opened his eyes, he whispered, "Boss lady?" Emma cried for the first time since they left home. Weeks passed. Therapists came and went. Social workers began looking into extended family. But for Emma, none of that mattered until she was sure Leo was okay. One afternoon, while coloring in the activity room, she asked Cole a question. "Do you think the trees missed us?" He smiled. "I think they're glad you made it out." She paused. "I miss the stars, but I'm glad they didn't see us too much." Cole didn't ask what she meant. He just sat beside her and colored too. Eventually, they left the base. Not back into the woods, but into a new life. A foster family, carefully selected and fully briefed, welcomed them with open arms. They had a dog, a garden, and a big yellow school bus that stopped right outside the house. Emma sat by the window on her first day of school, counting trees just like she always dreamed. But the story didn't end there. Sergeant Cole never forgot her. He kept the notebook safe, even after returning to active duty. It stayed wrapped in the same shirt she'd used, Leo's rocket ship shirt, and lived in his locker like a relic. He started writing, too, not in crayon, but in the margins of his field journal. Thoughts, memories, lessons, and one day, he submitted an article to a military magazine titled, "The Bravest Soldier I Ever Met Was 9 Years Old." It went viral. That one article led to a book. The book led to speaking invitations, school assemblies, mental health summits, campaigns for war-affected children. Emma's name was never used publicly. Her face never shown. That had been her wish, and it was respected. But her story changed people. Across the world, people donated to shelters and children's organizations. Some left backpacks by their local fire stations with notes that simply read, "For Emma." Years later, on a quiet spring morning, a woman in a blazer stood outside a school auditorium. She was tall now, poised, still carried herself like someone who had once crossed forests and survived storms. In her hand was a folder filled with notes. On her chest, a small pin shaped like a notebook. The announcer's voice echoed, "Today's speaker is an advocate, survivor, and future leader. Please welcome Emma." She walked up to the mic, glanced once at the crowd, then smiled. "I'm here today," she began, "because someone believed my story mattered. I want every kid who feels invisible, every child carrying weight they shouldn't, to know your voice matters too." In the audience, an older man stood near the back wall, uniform slightly worn, gray now around the temples, but still standing tall. Emma caught his eye. She didn't wave. She simply nodded, and he nodded back. Because sometimes, the most powerful stories are the quiet ones. The ones carried in notebooks, whispered in the woods, and etched forever in the hearts of those who truly listen. Months passed. Seasons turned. The media frenzy faded. The world, as it always does, moved on. But Sergeant Cole didn't. He still thought about Emma and Leo every day. Their courage, their stillness in the face of terror. The way they taught him more about survival than any battlefield ever had. He visited their new family from time to time, always respectfully, always at Emma's pace. But mostly, he just watched from afar, making sure they had what they needed. One overcast afternoon, while cleaning out his storage unit, Cole came across a box he'd nearly forgotten. Inside was the worn rocket ship shirt, folded neatly, still protecting Emma's diary. He held it like a fragile treasure and sat down slowly. He hadn't opened it in a while. He knew every page, every scribble, every story she'd written to herself in the dark. But that day, something told him to look again. He flipped through the final pages and noticed something he hadn't seen before. Tucked inside the back cover, behind the family photo, was a folded note. Unlabeled, unfinished, almost like it had been hidden away for later, forgotten, or maybe purposely left behind. His hands trembled as he opened it. The handwriting was neater than the rest, as if Emma had taken her time, chosen her words. It read, "Dear soldier, if you're reading this, then I think you found me. Or maybe just my bag. I don't know if I'm safe yet, but I hope I am. I wanted to say thank you. For looking, for reading, for not pretending like you didn't see it. I don't remember what it's like to feel warm, or safe, or full, but I remember what it's like to believe someone might come. that someone good still exists. Maybe that someone is you. If you found my brother, please tell him I did my best. I tried to be strong when he was sick. I gave him most of the food. I told him stories even when I was tired. I never wanted him to think we were lost. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I didn't want to disappear quietly. I wanted someone to know we were here, that we mattered. Even if you can't find us, thank you for trying. From someone who still believes in heroes, Emma. Cole didn't realize he was crying until the paper blurred in his hands. He read the letter again, and then again. Each sentence felt like a whispered secret carried across time. A message meant only for someone willing to listen. Someone willing to believe that bravery doesn't always wear armor. Sometimes, it comes with cracked fingernails and a child's handwriting. He folded the letter and placed it back exactly where he'd found it. He sat in silence for a long time. Then, with great care, he stood, pulled out his field journal, and began writing his final note about Emma. Not for the world, not for a blog, not for a headline, but for himself. Entry number 314, she never disappeared. She didn't vanish. She left a trail. One made of words and wonder. One filled with echoes and honesty. She carved her story into paper when no one was listening. She left it not for fame, not for rescue, but for remembrance. I found her, but the truth is she found me too. In a world filled with noise, Emma taught me the value of quiet courage. Cole closed the journal, exhaled slowly, and stood by the window of his small apartment. Outside, kids were playing. The sound of laughter rolled up through the air, bouncing between the buildings. And for the first time in a long while, he smiled. Not because the story had ended, but because it hadn't. Emma was still out there, growing, learning, laughing, writing. And perhaps one day, she'd find that letter again, years later, and remember the version of herself who dared to believe in strangers. But for now, it lived with Cole, guarded, safe, etched into his memory forever. Sometimes, the loudest message is the one never spoken aloud. Sometimes, the most powerful goodbye is a note never sent. And sometimes, the people who change our lives do so without ever meaning to. Emma had left a mark on the world, not with noise, but with words. And the soldier who found her never stopped listening. Years slipped by like quiet streams through the woods Emma once called home. Life moved on. The trees that had once hidden her footsteps now rustled with the soft sound of wind and healing rain. The forest no longer whispered secrets in fear. It simply breathed, calm and eternal. Somewhere beyond those trees, in a cozy home filled with framed drawings and laughter, Emma and Leo grew up. Leo, once the quiet shadow of his sister's bravery, became the one who asked the most questions in class. He liked science. He liked rockets. He never stopped wearing star-patterned pajamas. When asked what he wanted to be when he grew up, he always answered, safe. Emma? Emma never liked the word survivor. She preferred writer. She wrote stories now. Not just in notebooks, but in journals, on typewriters, on glowing laptop screens. She wrote about strong girls and little brothers and the stars that never looked away. But most of all, she wrote about silence, how it could destroy, but also how it could protect, how it could be a shield or a prison. Her first published piece was a children's book. It didn't say it was about her, but those who knew knew. It was called The Fence, the Forest, and the Bag. It told the tale of a girl who left hope where others would leave footprints, and a boy who followed her because he believed in her voice. It was translated into 16 languages. Donated copies were sent to children's hospitals, women's shelters, and refugee camps. Everywhere it went, it left something behind, something more than paper and ink. It left belief. Emma never liked being on stage, but she often found herself there. At book launches, at conferences, at charity fundraisers, not because she wanted the spotlight, but because someone needed to stand there and remind the world. I am proof you don't need to be big to be brave. One day, she visited the base again. She wasn't sure why, only that her feet seemed to carry her toward the past, gently without protest. Cole was waiting by the gate. He had more gray in his hair, but his posture was still solid. When he saw her, he saluted. She laughed. "Stop that," she said, hugging him. "I outrank you in years now." He smiled. "That's true. I just follow orders now." They walked the perimeter together, the same fence, the same bend in the road where he once found her backpack. But something had changed. At that very spot, a small plaque had been placed, bronze, brushed with sunlight, nestled into stone. It didn't say her name. It didn't mention the events in detail, but the words were simple, timeless. To those who leave hope behind, so others can find the way. Emma stood there in silence. Cole asked gently, "Do you want to say something?" She shook her head, wiping a tear with the edge of her sleeve. I think she already said enough. They stood for a while. Behind them, young recruits trained. Boots pounded the earth. Orders were shouted. Somewhere in the distance, the low hum of a convoy rolled past. The world kept moving. But in that clearing, time softened. Cole reached into his pocket and pulled out something wrapped in plastic. "I think this belongs to you." It was the notebook, worn, weathered, but still whole. Emma hesitated, then took it. She flipped through the pages, brushing her fingers gently across the old crayon lines and wrinkled corners. The drawings, the scratched-out thoughts, the courage between every syllable. And there, at the back, her letter, unsent, unspoken, still folded neatly. She smiled. "I don't need it anymore," she said quietly. Cole nodded. "Then maybe we pass it on." So they did. They created a program. Echo letters. A box was placed in every military base, every shelter, every school that welcomed them. Children could write letters to anyone, soldiers, parents, strangers. Letters they were too afraid to say aloud. And those letters were read by people who listened, by people like Cole, by people like Emma once hoped would exist. It became more than a project. It became a movement. Years later, a young cadet picked up a letter from the echo box. It was written in shaky handwriting and said, "I'm scared my dad won't come home from the war. I don't know how to say that without crying, so I wrote it here." The cadet folded the paper and whispered, "You're not alone," because that's what the story had become. A map of emotion, a compass for the voiceless, a thread connecting every scared child to the promise that somewhere, someone is listening. Emma watched it all unfold, quietly, gratefully. And one night, sitting by the window in her little writing room, she opened a new journal. The first page she wrote was simple. "I once left a note in a backpack. I didn't know where it would land, but I'm glad someone found it, because that means someone was looking." She closed the book. She didn't need the world to remember every detail. She just wanted them to believe in footprints left behind, and in the echoes that follow, soft but never forgotten. Some stories don't end when the last page is turned. They echo. They ripple outward, quietly transforming the people who hear them. Emma's backpack became one of those stories. A forgotten item left beside a cold fence. A whisper turned into a call. A symbol of everything that had been lost, and everything that could still be saved. Across the country, Emma and Leo's story became more than a news headline. It became a parable. Schools discussed it in ethics class. Military bases restructured emergency response protocols. Survivors found strength in it. Writers found inspiration in it. And most importantly, children found hope in it. One principal in Montana started placing small, blank notebooks in the cafeteria labeled, "Write if you're scared." She said she got over 200 letters the first week. Not dramatic ones, just quiet truths. Kids afraid of the dark. Kids tired of pretending to be okay. Kids who finally felt safe to speak. All because one little girl once chose to write instead of disappear. Emma never claimed to be a hero. In fact, she rejected the title every time the media tried to crown her with it. "I didn't save anyone," she'd say gently. "I just left something behind in case someone cared." But that's the thing about real heroes. They don't shout. They don't seek credit. They act in silence when no one is watching, and still hope it makes a difference. For Sergeant Nathan Cole, everything had changed. He went on to lead national advocacy programs for at-risk youth. His speeches were never about war or weapons. They were about voices. How sometimes the bravest act is speaking when no one believes you'll be heard. And when asked why he stayed involved, he always said the same thing. "Because she believed in me first." The physical backpack, Emma's actual one, was never returned to her. She didn't want it back. Instead, it was placed in a secure display at Fort Harrington's Visitor Center, behind a glass case with one simple quote etched below: "Hope lives in small things left behind." Visitors came from everywhere. Veterans, children, journalists, survivors. They stood before the little pink bag, often in silence, often in tears. It had become more than an artifact. It was a reminder that sometimes the most powerful messages arrive not with noise, but with a whisper, delivered through weathered canvas and trembling handwriting. Over time, the forest where she and Leo had once hidden became part of a protected reserve, not because of the story, but because of what the land symbolized afterward. A place where trauma was buried, but not forgotten, where healing could take root beneath the moss and pine. One hiker said she found a stone carving there once. No initials, no names, just the words, "Still here." No one knew who carved it, but many believed it was Emma, or maybe someone she inspired. Years later, when Emma was invited to speak at a national literacy event, she walked onto the stage with a familiar journal in her hand, one that still smelled faintly of lavender and rain. She didn't read from it. She just held it up and said, "This helped me survive." Not the paper, not the pen, but the belief that maybe, just maybe, someone would care enough to read what I wrote. If you're here tonight, it means someone did. Thank you for being that someone. The crowd stood, not in applause for a child who had endured, but for a woman who had risen. And somewhere backstage, Cole stood watching. Still her soldier, still her first listener, still the one who'd found the backpack not with his eyes, but with his heart. Because that's where the story truly lived. Not in the bag, not in the diary, not even in the forest, but in the choice to listen. When silence begged to be heard. And for everyone who ever felt small, voiceless, or forgotten, Emma's message remained. You are not invisible. You are not alone. You are not lost. Just waiting to be found. It was never just about the backpack. It wasn't about the straps frayed with use, or the tiny charm clipped to the zipper, or even the pages hidden inside. It was about what the backpack carried that no one could see. Fear, hope, a child's voice trying to speak through silence. And someone finally listened. That's what changed everything. Because for every Emma and Leo out there, every child afraid to speak, every lost soul trying to be found, there are those who pass by. Some look away. Some don't notice. But a rare few stop. Sergeant Cole had no idea his life would shift when he picked up a forgotten bag by a fence. He wasn't looking for glory. He wasn't expecting a mystery. All he did was care. But sometimes, that's all it takes. One person, one choice, one quiet act of attention, and that one moment becomes the stone tossed into still water. sending ripples across lives, cities, even generations. Emma never stopped writing. Even after the books, the interviews, the cameras, she always kept one notebook just for herself. And in it, she often returned to a single sentence. Don't forget who you were when no one saw you. Because that's who she really was. Not the survivor. Not the author. Not the symbol. She was the girl who believed her voice mattered. Even when it echoed in the dark. That message didn't end with her. It traveled. In backpacks and notebooks. In programs and letters. In stories told by firelight or whispered at bedtime. And one day, somewhere far from that base, a young girl picked up a pencil and wrote her own note. I don't know if I matter, but maybe someone will care enough to read this. She folded it, placed it in her school bag, and kept walking, just a little taller, because someone once did care. Someone picked up a backpack, and in doing so, lifted the voice inside it. This wasn't just a story. It was a reminder. Listen. Look closer. You never know whose world you might save. Not all heroes wear uniforms. Some wear backpacks, and some simply read what's inside them.